Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. I hope you are all off to a great start this morning. We are going to take a quick moment to allow all participants to join. So we're gonna give it here about a minute or two. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Just one more minute so that everybody has a chance to join the webinar. It is wonderful to see many of you joining in. A warm welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us this morning. Thank you for joining in. Good morning. Thank you for being here with us this morning. We do want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we're gonna get started. Welcome to Optimum Life Reinsurance presentation of Claims CSI Fraud Detection Part 1 of 2, presented by Michelle McAllister. My name is Natalia Burgos. I am a senior claims analyst here at Optimum Re, collaborating closely with Michelle. We are delighted to have you all with us this morning. Our goal is to ensure that you find value in this webinar as we gain insights into both established and emerging fraud schemes, along with helpful investigative techniques vital for detecting fraud in both the claims processing and underwriting. Before we dive in, and while participants are still joining, there are a few disclaimers I would like to address before we start this presentation. So here goes our little quick disclaimers list. During this presentation, we will discuss some cases involving fraud in claims and in the policy application process. We will examine the intricacies and useful investigating tools to process the enormous amount of information related to cases where fraud is suspected or evident. Some of the names, places, and circumstances of these cases have been altered to ensure the confidentiality and privacy of the individuals involved. These discussions are intended for education and informational purposes only and are not intended to make a group decision regarding a particular claim. All claim decisions are the sole responsibility of the individual direct carrier. Optimum Re is dedicated to improving claims adjudication skills for our client companies as well as our own claims analysts, and it is our policy to avoid all antitrust or anti-competitive laws. So that was our quick disclaimers list for you guys this morning. For questions and answers, please submit any questions you have in the Q&A section of your Zoom application. Everyone should have a Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom application. So please make sure you use that Q&A button for all questions, as we will not be able to answer any questions from raise hands or from the chat function. So please make sure you use that Q&A button. Michelle will answer some questions as time allows at the midpoint and at the end of the presentation. Any unanswered questions will be addressed via email to all participants following today's webinar. We will provide answers accompanied by a PDF copy and a recording of today's presentation for your reference. This email should arrive in the days following the webinar. And if you have any additional questions after the webinar is finished, please submit them to info.us@optimumre.com. That was info.us@optimumre.com. At the conclusion of the webinar, you will receive a survey. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to us, and we would greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to complete that survey. Moving on to our upcoming events, don't forget to mark your calendars for part 2 of our fraud detection webinar with Monica Klink. This part 2 is scheduled for June 25th, and we look forward to having you join us again. So mark your calendars, June 25th, part 2 with Monica Klink. I also want to remind you that Optimum Re will be hosting our first ever claims seminar on October 7th and 8th in Dallas, Texas. The whole claims department here at Optimum is really excited, and we would love to see you all there. Be on the lookout for a registration email coming your way soon. If you or any of your team members need to be added to our distribution list, please reach out to us so that we can get your contact information for all of our upcoming events. And I believe that's all I had for you guys this morning. We are ready. As I mentioned earlier, today's webinar is presented by Michelle McAllister. Michelle started her career in the life insurance industry as a claims examiner at a direct carrier company 15 years ago. 12 years ago, Michelle joined Optimum as an intermediate claims analyst and now serves as the claims manager. Michelle attended the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and now lives in Dallas with her family. A quick fun fact about Michelle is that she is a paint by numbers Picasso. Trust me, guys, I've seen some of her work and it's truly amazing. You wouldn't guess there are numbers underneath the paint. So without further ado, Michelle, please take it away. We're ready for you.
Sorry about that. Okay. Welcome and thank you all for attending my webinar. I'm so happy to have you here. Again, like Natalia said, I am a paint by numbers aficionado because I can't draw a thing, but I love to paint and I'm really good at painting. If I can, if you ever get to visit me, either in the office at Optimum Re or maybe I'll get to post some of my Picasso paintings on my LinkedIn. So look out for that. But let's go ahead and get started here with the first part one of two, I'm sorry, of our fraud detection webinar series. As Natalia indicated, the second part will be hosted by Monica. I will be touching on some of the things that Monica will talk about, but I'm going to save some of the details for her. But let's get started. Okay, so calling all crimes investigator, claim crime investigator, and insurance fraud detectors. We want you. We need you. There's a lot of fraud going on out there in the world. People are making a living off of defrauding insurance companies, the government, all kinds of places. So we need good detectives, good investigators to detect this fraud and save the insurance and the American population as a whole a lot of money. So quick question before we get into it. By answering yes or no to the poll, how many of you would agree that one really good indicator of a excellent claims examiner is that they are true crime aficionados? And I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And that's how you can just let me know when you've been able to. Uh-oh, do I have my wrong thing up here? Sorry. Let me fix that. Thank you. Whoever helped me fix that.
Okay, we have 69% of participants have answered the poll, 70%.
Okay. Give it one more minute. Okay, what do we got?
So we got a yes with an 83% and a no with a 17%.
Well, I am glad to know that the vast majority of you agree with me. Actually, true crime aficionados are, usually the amateur detectives and investigators, so they tend to make really good claims examiners. And thank you for your participation in my poll. And thank you for pointing out my little technical difficulty here, but we'll move on. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? On the agenda, we'll talk about what is fraud. And we'll talk about the impact of fraud, statistically speaking. We'll talk about something in today's news, a very recent case of fraud that impacts the direct writing and the direct writers and the insurance industry as a whole. And it will change the way we do some things with our claims adjudication, because it has to. We'll go through some fraud schemes, a few different types. We'll talk about a few different types, and then we'll get into a couple case studies. And these case studies are just, a little bit of help. I'll be asking, what would you do? I welcome in the Q&A section as well as any questions, any comments or war stories you may want to share. We're all here to learn, and we all have lots to learn from each other. So please feel free to share. And then we'll talk about some, in general, red flags for fraud, things that we can be on the lookout for. And again, if you'd like to share some red flags that you've run into that I may not mention in this presentation, please feel free to share. And then we'll do some conclusions and takeaways. So let's get started here. So we'll start with, what is fraud? So I love these two words. I am a wordsmith and I love looking up words in the dictionary. I'm a nerd. Fraud is deceit or trickery. Trickery is the word I really like. Specifically, it's the intentional perversion of the truth in order to induce another to part with something of value or to give up a legal right. This may sound very familiar. This happens to insurance companies all the time. And also, fraud is the act of deceiving or misrepresenting, two words we use quite often in claims. All right. So what is the impact of fraud, statistically speaking? Well, I've gathered up a couple statistics here. First thing is that fraud cost the American consumers $308.6 billion, that's with a B, dollars every year. I was amazed when I saw that number written out. That's 308, 600, and 6 zeros. That's a huge number. Lots of money cost us. And about 10% of property and casualty losses are fraudulent claims, a full 10%. And we all know that property and casualty losses can be huge. And lastly, according to the AARP survey taken in 2018, Medicare fraud is estimated to cost $60 billion per year. 60 billion, that's a 60 and 9 zeros. That's a lot of money that directly impacts taxpayers, which is you, I, and everybody else in America. So I was amazed by these numbers. And what we want to do is do the best that we can to make even a small dent in fraud as a claims examiner. If we can do some things, take some extra steps to prevent this or to catch it when it comes across, or maybe teach our underwriting friends, how they can help us prevent fraud by, doing a little bit of extra work up front. If it doesn't, it's not too inefficient for them, it would go a long way to putting a small dent in this number. A lot of small dents adds up. We're in the insurance industry and we all know and believe in the law of large numbers. All right. So in today's news, this was a very interesting news article. This is actually something that took place this month. So I think it's Lead, South Dakota. A husband and wife were convicted of conspiracy to defraud the United States government. And they were sentenced to a little over a year in prison and fined this $211,000. So here's some details. What happened was in 2012, one of the defendants, Jason Lee Stokes, filed a fraudulent Social Security disability claim. And he filed this claim with the help of his wife, Tammy Lee Stokes. So from 2013 to 2023, the couple filed falsified reports, and Jason actually attended doctor's appointments where he faked or acted out the symptoms of the symptoms that he had listed in the falsified reports. He reported that he needed a wheelchair, he was homebound, he couldn't perform the essential activities of daily living like brushing his teeth or shaving without substantial assistance. For that entire 10-year period where Jason was homebound and couldn't perform his ADLs, he was actually healthy and employed, a self-employed contractor whose business operated under an LLC in his wife's name. The couple also applied for and received Social Security benefits for a minor child. So this couple was a little diabolical with the Social Security Administration. Finally, in 2022, Jason went to see a doctor who looked at his, muscle tone and said that it wasn't consistent with the impairments that Mr. Stokes had. This sparked the investigation into Mr. Stokes' disability claim and also into the minor child disability claim. The investigation revealed that Mr. Stokes participated in all of his family's daily routines, including shopping, taking trips to Mexico to go scuba diving, eating out, and driving. All of this is very difficult for a homebound person to do. So the couple in May of this year was, I believe Jason was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, and he had to pay $100 fine to the Federal Victims Fund. And Mrs. Stokes, Tammy Lee Stokes, was convicted to and sentenced to 15 months in federal prison and had to pay that $100 to the Federal Victims Fund. And the couple for this 10 years, I've received approximately $209,500 in Social Security benefits. And a case like this, of course, I can imagine all of the claims examiners, maybe even the underwriters out there, are thinking to themselves, wow, this case can have some really far-reaching implications and effects on how we review our disability claims. And certainly they will. Side effects are a horrible thing. We all hear about the side effects when we listen to the pharmaceutical companies commercials, and they tell us about all these ridiculous side effects. And the side effects of this, and you can see I put them in small print like the pharmaceutical companies do. The side effects for this, for me personally, will be difficulty reaching sound decisions on disability claims in a timely and efficient manner, the loss of the ability to believe that most disability claims are actually legitimate and should be paid. Those are my side effects, and I'm sure many of you are experiencing similar side effects. Well, here's some more side effects. So how does this case impact the adjudication of disability claims? I'm going to take a quick 60-second pause here and allow you guys to go ahead and enter something into the Q&A and tell me how you think this case is going to impact the way you or maybe your colleagues adjudicate a disability claim. And Natalia, if you could just share anything that's put in there, if anybody adds anything.
I don't see anything coming in yet, but
okay. All right, well, I will share how I think it's going to impact it. And when we are adjudicating disability claims, it's very easy for us to assume that the insured is actually disabled if he can provide the insurance company with a disability benefits approval letter from the Social Security Administration. We depend on that letter a lot of times to be in the claim file to help us get through. And why is that? Well, reliance on the perception that the Social Security Administration is going to do an in-depth and thorough investigation into the insurer's disability status. We rely on the Social Security Administration to do that because they're the experts in disability. It also provides the insurance companies with a faster resolution to the claim settlement. Helps us, sometimes that will keep us from needing to get medical records, which will cut our costs. And we don't have to go for that expensive independent medical exam if the insured can show, hey, okay, well, they've been to Social Security sends them to the doctors, things like that, yada, yada, just like Mr. Stokes went. It's also very difficult for an insurance company to deny a claim if the person has been shown to be disabled by the Social Security Administration. Nobody, no claims examiner wants to be the one in the deposition seat or in the hot seat at trial trying to explain why our expert opinion is better than that of a Social Security disability investigator at the Social Security Administration. So those are the reasons why we depend on that letter. But as we can see, we may need to take other steps, even though we have that letter on the file.
We do have some notes here from the participants. So yeah, they will make sure that the insured is seen by a doctor that can confirm the disability, and that the insured is seen in a timely manner, whether it's a doctor visit or an interview.
Okay, good. All right. Well, here's some tips to manage the side effects. Take a quick aspirin and request a physician statement and a HIPAA authorization release form from the insured on a regular basis. You may want to do this every 1 to 3 years, regardless of the insured's condition. It may seem like it's permanent, but usually even on a permanent disability status, the insured needs to be seen by a doctor at least once a year. Healthy people have to be seen once a year. So it's not that big of a burden to ask the insured to submit a physician statement. 1, 2 years, 3 years, maybe, at your discretion, but you want to do it on a regular basis. And then you want to educate your claims examiners. I can't emphasize that enough. You will see this again. Educate, educate, educate. Educate your claims examiner on common conditions that lead to disability claims, where the symptoms are primarily subjective rather than objectively observed. These are conditions like back pain, neck pain, all real conditions, and can be legitimate causes of disability and permanent disability, but they need to be evaluated. Sometimes the statements that the insureds make on their claimant statements can give away whether or not they're really disabled, if the only way of assessing their disability is by asking them about their subjective symptoms. Doctors have gotten really good with, employing some tests and some physical tests, things like that, like the straight arm motion and range of motion, things like that, to determine whether or not a person is reporting false subjective symptoms. But you also want your claims examiners to be just as educated in that stuff, or at least, well educated in that kind of thing, so that they can just look at it by reading the medical records. And also, you want to closely examine the documents that are submitted by your insurance. You want to make sure that those documents are authentic. And if you have any suspicions, you want to take steps to authenticate that. Give the doctor a call and ask, is this person being seen by you? Find out if the doctor is real. Sometimes we've run across that in disability claims, where the insured will be submitting an attending physician statement and the physician doesn't even exist, and they'll submit those attending physician statements for years before anybody verifies, is this actually a doctor? You can always request the medical records, but if you just want to avoid that cost, it's usually not too much to send over a HIPAA authorization form and say, can you verify that this person is a patient and that they're being seen at least on an annual basis for this particular condition? You have the HIPAA authorization to disclose that information to you. You can type up a quick questionnaire to the doctor and then get some information, and at least have done some type of due diligence to make sure that this is a legitimate disability claim. Also, before classifying any insured as permanently disabled, where you're going to be paying disability benefits for years upon end, or, even if there was a stop time for the disability benefits, um, but you're going to be paying out a good, amount of disability benefits, you may want to consider having an independent medical exam done before you declare that insured as permanently disabled and not having to submit any further documentation regarding their medical condition. This is usually an acid test for a disability because the insurance company is allowed to pick the doctor that the insured can go to, and you'll get a third party and usually non-biased opinion. They're not friends with the doctor or lifelong patients of this particular doctor. This doctor tends to be more objective and will give you objective results, right? So that's one way, in just this particular case, in which we can manage our disability claims and prevent some fraud. All right, so now we're going to go through some fraud schemes, some old ones that sound really familiar, some new ones, and see what's trending now. Okay, so some types of frauds we have are stolies and other wagering contracts. Monica will get into that a little bit more in her presentation, because with the stolies, it involves some falsifying of information on applications at underwriting, and oftentimes it's not discovered until claims. Beneficiary changes. People make these changes to commit fraud quite often. And this kind of falls in the elderly abuse. It tends to happen to our elderly clients, or maybe our youth who don't know that they even have an insurance policy, and they don't know how insurance policies work. We'll talk about some foreign death claim fraud, forged documents, synthetic identities. That's a new and hot one. I'm not going to get too far into synthetic identities. We'll talk about it a little bit, but that is a new hot topic that hits all these other types of frauds. And then we'll talk about a little bit about agent fraud. Um, so, okay, we're going to do a first, and we're going to combine these types of frauds with a couple case studies. Okay, so wagering contracts. So the wagering contracts we mostly refer to them as stolies, but there are other types of wagering contracts. And this is the purchase of a policy that's solely for the profit of an uninterested party that is not concerned with the continued life of the insured. For example, an investor. So by uninterested party, I mean that this party has absolutely no insurable interest on this person. They don't know them. These come in the form of the stranger originated life insurance. Also, sometimes that's known as investor originated life insurance, IOLI. Individuals, this happens to individuals living a high-risk lifestyle, usually young people who are involved in drugs or some type of criminal activity, or maybe they, engage in some high-risk activities like the jumping out of a helicopter onto the side of a mountain, those kind of things. Families will actually put really high dollar face amount life insurance policies on this type of people, with the expectation that they're going to die because of their lifestyle. And with that becomes a lot of misrepresentation, either of their medical information or their financial information. With the stolies, there's no insurable interest, and it's often taken out on the elderly with impaired health, because the goal is to get past the 2-year contestable period, and so that no investigation will be launched upon the death of the insured. But they want that person to be just about ready to die. They just need them to make it past the 2 years. So they'll choose someone with not terminally ill, but impaired health. On these other kinds of wagering contracts, again, the high-risk lifestyles, or actually terminally ill patients, they'll pay them to pay the terminally ill person to participate in the application and process and issuance process to get a policy, they'll promise them, okay, if you um, apply for and go through the process of getting this 1 million, 3 million, $20 million policy, we'll give you 1% of that, or 10% of that, or 5% of that, or we'll give you some dividends on the cash value that's earned on the policy, things like that. And this person typically does not have the financial means to justify the high face amount, or they are not medically qualified for those policies. So just about all wagering contracts involve some type of fraud. Monica will get further into the details of this medical and financial misrepresentation in part 2. So look forward to that. Okay, foreign deaths. This is the bane of just about every claims examiner's existence. When we see a foreign death come across, it is so difficult for us to tell if what we have in front of us is a legitimate claim. Is this person dead? It's difficult for us to know because we're not really familiar with documents outside of the United States. We may be familiar with some because, some of us see them more often, but it is hard to tell when they change things. We don't get news flashes or anything like that. We can use Google to help us, with Google Images to help us see if we can figure out what it looks like. The thing about those images is they're really easy to print out, copy, and make your own document. And again, falsify a claim on a fraudulent person. It could be a person who doesn't exist or a person who has already passed away, anything like that. So some things to look out for and things that could be red flags, an indicator of fraud on foreign death claims. And these are things that we've talked about in previous webinars. Is the insured new to the U.S. or did they spend little to no time in the U.S.? Recently, we saw a claim where the insured came to the U.S., filled out the policy application the day after, and left 2 days later. Definitely was not a citizen or a permanent resident of the U.S. and didn't even bother to stay long. This information was disclosed on the foreign death questionnaire. So that was a really big red flag. When you receive documents from a country that doesn't speak English, isn't known for speaking English, and those documents come in English, you might want to take a better look at that. When you get many death certificates submitted, I know in some countries they have a death certificate, they have a certification of death, a medical certification of death. So there's many different kinds of documents, but when you get 4 or 5 different documents that all say they're a death certificate or a certificate of death, that's a huge red flag. Inconsistent or vague information from the families. That foreign death questionnaire is so valuable. I know you've heard me say it before in other presentations. It is so valuable to have that foreign death questionnaire because that's where your beneficiary is telling you information. And oftentimes beneficiaries forget not to tell you a lie. If a translation of documents that aren't in English is submitted at the time of the claim sent in with it, that's all good and well, and thank you very much, but highly recommend that companies get their own translation done because we don't know who did that translation. Even if that person is qualified to do the translation, you want to get your own translator to the documents. If you don't have someone in-house who can read and write that particular language, you can outsource that. And I don't think it's very expensive. I'm not sure. You want to know if the beneficiary resides abroad, because if the beneficiary resides abroad and your insured didn't reside or shortly resided in the United States, do I have a legitimate claim? Was a policy legitimately issued? Lots of companies don't issue policies in certain countries outside of the United States. They're not even legally can't issue those policies. So you want to take a good look at that. If your beneficiary resides abroad, that's an indication that this could be definitely a synthetic identity that someone has just made up on some person, because it's very difficult for us to verify that beneficiary's identity, let alone the insured, and that the insured has passed away. A cremation in a foreign country or disposition contrary to local customs. Really good idea. Again, educate yourself. Really good idea if you routinely get claims from Mexico or from India or wherever, Japan, know what the local customs are. How do they, dispose of their dead? What do they do? Do they cremate them? Are they buried? Do they not believe in cremation? Things like that. And if you see something to the contrary in the documents, question that. Um, Abundance of documents tied up with the bow. I call this my pretty package. This happens quite often where we just get a little too much information without any solicitation. The beneficiary will call up, want to report a death claim. They don't even tell you that the insured died in a different country, and you get everything you normally would ask for in a package, and you haven't even told them that you need this information. That is a really, really, really big, huge red flag. Something is wrong. Most beneficiaries of a normal domestic U.S. death claim do not know what we need in order to complete processing that claim. Also, a purchase of a one-way ticket. This is indication that perhaps you don't have someone who ever resided within the United States, may not have been eligible because they purchased a one-way ticket back home. They're not coming back. Not It's something to look at, but a lot of times also too, you want to consider that people, especially older people, they've lived and worked in the United States, and they'll go home if they're sick to pass away because they want to die at home. So keep those things in mind. Also, if they're traveling to a foreign country for, I don't know, scuba diving, most people don't travel alone. It's not unheard of, but most people don't travel alone. Were they traveling alone? How long were they plan on staying? What were they doing? These are great questions to add to your foreign death questionnaire. All right, and here again, these countries are still on the list, hotspots for high risk for fraud. You want to take a good look and a deeper dive into the foreign death claims you get that when you get where the insured died in one of these countries. Right now, the last I heard at our ICA conference from our friends that were doing a presentation at the ICA conference is that Mexico is the new hotspot. So be really careful with the Mexican foreign death claims. Make sure everything is in order. Make sure you don't have that pretty package tied up, and that you're not afraid to ask the beneficiary questions. All right, so here's a case study on elder abuse and owner and beneficiary changes. So a lot of times this happens when we have a person that has impaired mental health. And sometimes what we'll see in the file is that there's insufficient home health care, either by a family member or a caregiver, and sometimes that could be because they were trying to urge on the insured's death. Um, Also, these free lunch sessions for our elders, they'll get invited, and this goes into the agent abuse that we were going to touch on. They'll get invited by agents to, little conference in conference room and, ABC hotel motel down the street. We'll feed you lunch, and we'll come in here and do a presentation. And at the end of it, you're going to buy a life insurance policy that you may not be able to afford. And oftentimes you don't need it. And the sad part about these sessions is that the agents are so pushy that they'll have the elderly person, just kind of confused about what's going on. They're fast talking them, and they'll end up replacing their current insurance policy that's not contestable. They've had it for years. It's a whole life. It's going to cover them to the end with some policy for far less money, far less as in face amount value, far less money, more premiums, and now the policy is contestable, and this person may or may not be in decent health long enough to outlast the contestable period, and then leave their beneficiaries with nothing because the claim a lot of times can be it's just a refund of premium if the person dies within the first 2 years, or it's a reduced benefit if the person dies within 2 years. And the beneficiary has no idea, and the insured had no idea that they were leaving their family member like that. It's really terrible case of agent abuse on the elderly, and it happens all the time. Also, there's scare tactics used by family members or agents urging the elderly to sign up for this policy. They're not really sure what's going on. They, again, may be impaired mentally, and you know they're trusting in this family member or maybe this agent friend of the family, and they're signing up for this policy and not knowing what they're getting. So that does happen a lot. And I have one case study here, and we call this case study the risk you're willing to take. So on this case study, we have Ralph. He's an 80-year-old male residing in California. Ralph is suffering from alcoholic senile dementia. He is basically in a coma. He's just being kept comfortable until he passes away because he's in rapid decline. Ralph died on October 21st, 2022. Ralph's children called the insurance company, ABC Insurance Company, and reported his death the following day on 10/22/22. On 10/23/2022, I'm sorry, that says 2023, that should be 2022. ABC Insurance Company received a change of beneficiary form signed by Ralph on 10/15/2022, and this beneficiary change made his living caretaker the primary and only beneficiary of the policy. So when the claims department received the change of beneficiary form, it was not notarized, didn't have to be. Most of them don't. I wish they were. It would help us out a little bit in claims. But the change of beneficiary form was not notarized. ABC Insurance Company received a call from the caretaker on the same day that they received the beneficiary change form to initiate a claim for the policy proceeds. When the company was notified, they called the children or competing beneficiaries to let them know, hey, we received a change of beneficiary form signed by Ralph here, and it appears that the living caretaker is the beneficiary of the policy instead of the insured's children. Well, the insured's children said that this caretaker had only known the insured for 6 months. And for that 6 months, Ralph had basically been in that coma and in rapid decline, or, you know, sick and going into rapid decline. So he couldn't have possibly signed a beneficiary change form. So what would you do? Do we want to get an interpleader involved? It was a small policy, $5,000 face amount. Do we want to get an interpleader involved and possibly bring this case to the court's attention that a caretaker who submitted a change of beneficiary form just before the insured died, making herself the beneficiary of the policy, and I'm sorry, by the way, the signature on the change of beneficiary form did not even come close to the signature that was on the application for the policy. And it didn't look like, we know that Ralph was, according to the children, in no condition to sign the document, but it didn't look like even a person who was in ill health tried to sign it like, you know, he did of the application. It was fairly clear in our unprofessional handwriting expert opinion that Ralph didn't sign this change of beneficiary form. So what would you do? Well, this particular insurance company decided that the risk they were willing to take was that we'll take the risk on having to pay out this $5,000 insurance proceeds twice rather than have one of these competing beneficiaries take us to court, the judge see and understand the circumstances. And sometimes the judge will, you know, recommend a higher suit or maybe even reward the children or the heirs, the insurer's heirs, more than the face amount of the policy. They didn't want something to happen once this got lawyers involved and got to court. So the risk they were willing to take was to go ahead and take the risk of maybe having to pay out this $5,000 face amount twice. Thought that was very prudent of them to stay out, especially in California. Okay, we can stop here. I don't know if we have any questions, Natalia.
I don't see any open questions right now, but if anybody has one, please remember to use the Q&A button and submit any questions through that section.
All right, then we'll just go ahead and proceed. I see one question, no?
Yes, so it says, if this would be a much higher face amount, what would we do differently?
if it was a much higher face amount and let's say, I don't know, $1 million face amount, most companies don't really want to pay a face amount of $1 million twice. You know, that may not be the risk they're willing to take. So then an interpleader will probably be the prudent way to go then and go ahead and let the court sort this out. Um, Here, the insurance company's thought process was if we get lawyers involved and they see that we caused these children um, of this insured all of this trouble by making them go to court to, holding this up in court and, not being able to bury their loved one because they were waiting on this money, we may end up getting sued. So the possibility of paying out 10,000 was a risk they're willing to take. Would they be willing to pay out 100,000 or even 200,000 or 500,000 or 2 million? That depends on the risk tolerance of the insurance company, but probably not. And they would go ahead and get the interpleader involved.
One more question. What are your thoughts if a POA changes beneficiary to themselves?
I don't particularly care for that, so I would definitely get the power of attorney document and see if they actually have that power. Also, that change of beneficiary form would uh, definitely need to be, a lot of people don't understand that power of attorney does not, um, that power of attorney ceases to exist upon the death of the insured. So you definitely want to make sure you have your dates in order. When was this change of beneficiary done? Does this person actually have the capability to change the beneficiary? Read that very carefully. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. And if they do, maybe consult with your legal department to make sure everything is in order before proceeding.
Okay, I don't see any more questions for now.
Okie doke. So we'll go on and we're going to talk about some fraudulent documents. Okay, so we have Olga. Olga's a 50-year-old cancer patient. Olga filed a ALBR claim on her life insurance policy, stating that she was terminally ill due to breast cancer. So she filled out all the documents, got her APS filled out. The insurance company requested medical records and received over 1,000 pages of medical records. Well, surprisingly, that package of 1,000 pages of medical records only had one mammogram that showed that Olga needed to go for an ultrasound and have some further workup regarding a suspicious lesion. And that was about it. No mention of breast cancer, no mention of chemotherapy, no, definitely not a mention of terminal illness, nothing like that. So the claims examiner called Olga and said, are there other doctors that we can request medical records from? We have very little information in this package about your breast cancer diagnosis. And so Olga said, oh, well, okay, sure, I'll go to my doctor and I'll get a copy of my ultrasound with the results that show my breast cancer and the staging of it, and I'll get all the information and send it to you. Okay. Well, what Olga sent in was one document, the ultrasound, that said she had breast cancer, no staging involved, no pathology, nothing like that. And when the examiner read through and analyzed that ultrasound document, she found that there was misspelled words and that there was also medical terminology on there that was not consistent with discussions of a breast cancer diagnosis. They talked about some gene studies that had little. I'm still there.
Yes.
I think I lost my connection. I'm sorry. That had nothing to do with breast cancer. I think the gene studies that they did actually had something to do with colon cancer, or the name of them had something to do with colon cancer. It was really odd. So what would you do in this situation? Okay, so to the examiner, it was obvious this was a fraudulent document. So the examiner did what we talked about doing on the disability claim, where they called up the doctor or the facility and said, hey, has this patient been seen there? Because we got medical records from this doctor from the hospital, but we asked for medical records from the imaging facility that this doctor ordered, and we just got this ultrasound, and this ultrasound appears to not be right. So after a little research and investigation, the insurer did have an ultrasound there. The ultrasound showed that the suspicious lesion was actually benign. And when comparing the ultrasound document side by side, they found that the document was completely forged and not a good forgery. They had just, copied the imaging center's um, document in their had it all set up, but they weren't very educated in medical terminology, used wrong medical terminology, and weren't able. So the insurance company was able to prove that this was a fraudulent document and deny the claim. I don't believe, but I don't know for sure if they pursued litigation against this particular insured for fraud. All right. Case study 2, too many changes to ignore. So this is a very interesting case. Um, And this is a very interesting case. So Miss Eleanor Adams was 88 years old, 88-year-old female. And prior to Eleanor's death, her beneficiary, who was her daughter, and had power of attorney, I don't know what that word is. I apologize for the typo. She changed, she was the power of attorney and owner of the policy. She changed Eleanor's name to Ogleen Johnson, changed her social security number, and changed her date of birth. 6 months later, Ogleen died, and the death certificate was issued in the name of Ogleen Johnson. So the insurance company received the death claim from the policy owner who was now the beneficiary, and they also received a claim from the benefactor society who was originally named as the beneficiary of the policy. This is a pet society. So the claim was contested by the daughter of Eleanor, saying that this beneficiary, the pet society, should not receive these benefits because she was the owner of the policy and she had changed the beneficiary to herself. Well, not only has she changed the beneficiary, but she had changed her mom's name, her mom's social security number, her mom's date of birth. And the investigation into the claim of why did you change all of this information, they found out that Mrs. Ogleen Johnson's daughter did not want the Pet Benefactor Society to receive the insurance proceeds. So she had done all that work, and the documentation that she had used to do that work was fraudulent. It wasn't fraud. So, but she did all of that so that she could be the benefactor of the policy, the beneficiary of the policy. So, in this particular case, the claim proceeds were paid out to the Pet Benefactor Society and not to the daughter of Ogleen Johnson, because she had done all of that fraudulent activity just to get the proceeds of the policy. All right. So I don't have any more case studies, but I do want to talk about some conclusions and takeaways. So fraud has red flags, and there are red flags all over the place. So what can you do to make sure that you are aware of fraud and what may be going on? First of all, assume nothing. When you get documents in front of you, be neutral about it. I don't know if this document is real. I don't know that it's fake. I'm going to do everything that I have to do to ensure that I have correct documents in front of me. Education, education, education. We say things 3 times so that we don't forget them. We want to make sure that we educate ourselves on medical terminology, educate ourselves on what's currently going on in the industry. And we can do that by attending the industry meetings and webinars, communicating and consulting with your colleagues. Sometimes your colleagues have gone to a webinar or attended a conference or just had a conversation with someone, across company or at a different company, they gave them some more information. And if you talk to them, they'll share that with you. And if you become the recipient of such good educational activities, please share with your coworkers and colleagues because we are here for each other. We need each other. We don't have a whole lot of places to go to gain this information. So please share. Also, if you have a claim that looks complicated and difficult, get your reinsurers involved. Um, Reinsurers have the advantage of seeing the insurance industry on a wide spectrum. We deal with several direct writer companies. So we see a little bit more what happens at this direct writer company. The other direct writer company may not know about. So, but the reinsurer does, and we may not be able to share specific information, but we certainly can point you in the right direction or let you know that you need to do a little bit more investigating on a claim and prevent you from paying out a fraudulent claim. Also, you want to um, get in contact with join things like I used a couple, let me go back a slide or two. Let's see if I can do this here. We want to go these websites like oh, here we go. Oh, come on. Sorry. Get this on here. Some of these websites I found very interesting when I was doing like the Coalition Against Fraud. This is a great website. They go into insurance fraud and other different kinds of frauds, but in life insurance, they actually, when you go down the rabbit hole on here, in life insurance, I got a lot of the information on wagering from, uh, you know, and it's current information, and they're telling you what's going on. And also, on this website here, I went to the justice.gov and it took me to the Department of Justice website, and then it'll take you down through the different states, and you can read headlines all about different cases that have gone through the court, current cases, old cases, things like that, what happened with the case. Because this particular lead South Dakota case with this married couple happened just this month in May, that these people were convicted, and it had very, very good information that about how a person can, maintain a 10-year fraudulent Social Security disability claim, and that directly affects how we adjudicate our disability claims, our waiver of premium claims, our accident-only claims, perhaps an ALBR claim. Because we take that letter from the Social Security Administration at face value. So educate yourself. Use your reinsurers because we do know about this kind of information. And, if you need, like for our clients, we are more than happy to host very specific webinars for you and anybody else who wants to be involved. If you want to know all about fraud in this particular arena, we can put together a webinar for you. So use your reinsurers. We are here to help, and we participate in losses, and we like to participate in the wins as well. So that is all I have for today. Natalia, I don't know if are there any questions?
I don't see any open questions right now, but if anybody has a question, please feel free to submit it.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Love questions.
Oh, okay. What are the best tools for verifying that we're dealing with the correct beneficiary, either over the phone or via email? As examples.
Like I said, I see some companies, they actually have the claimant statements notarized so that John Q. Public here that signed the beneficiary statement is actually your beneficiary. I like notaries. Somebody has looked at their ID and made sure that's them. There are other ways, like if we can do a website search and put, normally a beneficiary is a family or relationship to the insured. So if you can do a website search, look for the obituary, and the obituary shows that the insurer's obituary shows that John Q. Public is the son of Ann Q. Public, then that puts that together that you legitimately have the right beneficiary in front of you. But again, I like the notaries. Most companies don't do that. There's websites such as LexisNexis where you can verify addresses and make sure things add up. Use those databases if you have them available to you, to verify who you're dealing with. And over the phone, ask a few questions that the beneficiary would know. If you're dealing with someone who possibly doesn't know the insured, they may not know that the insured has 6 children or something like that. Try to ask some specific questions pointed at, are you who you really say you are?
Good. I don't see any other questions here right now.
Okie doke.
Okay, hold on. There's one more. Is it a normal practice to accept a change of identity for the insured?
It is not a normal practice, but if the power of attorney, or if we were going back to that case study, if the power of attorney was stipulated specifically that that person can initiate that type of change, you really can't argue it. What that case came down to was, what was the reasoning for changing all of that information for that person? Was there, they weren't a victim of identity theft or anything like that. That would initiate that kind of change legitimately. This was done just to get insurance proceeds. So I guess it would all depend on, whether or not their power of attorney or whatever legal document they had gave them the authority to do that. And that is something that I would definitely have reviewed by your legal department.
Okay. If we deal with a claim where date of birth, social security number is very different from the original application, does that suggest fraud, and what would be the consequences?
It could be a suggestion of fraud. Um, and the consequences could be that I'm thinking synthetic identity. You know, Synthetic identity has been called the long con. The last time I attended the ICA conference, I attended a session where the speaker described synthetic identity as a long con. But in fraud essentially is lying, and sometimes it's difficult for people to keep up with liars. So you definitely want to trust but verify. Maybe at application time and when we put the things in our system, we had the wrong information. Is this death certificate legitimate that I have in front of me, showing this social security number and date of birth? Is it legitimate? Is the death certificate right and our system's wrong? Or were our systems right and now I have something fraudulent in front of me? You can always, use LexisNexis, see if I can verify and put these pieces together. And sometimes asking the beneficiary a very pointed question, you'd be amazed by the information you can get. Also, you want to consult with your legal department to see what other types of actions you can take. I'm sure you could contact, if you don't have LexisNexis, doing a Google search on somebody reveals a lot of information. And usually social security numbers and dates of birth are not secret information if you know how to look on Google.
And especially with the true crime fans,
Yes.
sometimes we can find a lot of information on Google. Sometimes, we'll hear about the case, but we really don't see any documents or anything because it's in like the very beginning stages until, it's discovered that the insurance plays a part or played some sort of part in the whole scheme
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
story.
Yep, and your
So
public records, that's something I learned by watching true crime and listening to true crime podcasts is, do a public record search and see, can I match up this name, this date of birth, and this social security number to this person? Things aren't as private as we'd like to think they are, and it's out there.
one more, what do you think of agents who are primary beneficiaries on policies?
I think if the agent is legitimate and the insured person was aware of the policy, they have insurable interest on this person, it's okay. If I was an agent and someone in my family needed insurance, I would love to write it because then I could make sure they got the right kind of policy. They weren't getting cheated. It's something they can afford, because I have good intentions. And then an agent with bad intentions, first things first, our underwriters who are out there attending, please take a close look at insurable interest. Why is this person the beneficiary of this insurance policy? That's our first line of defense, is looking at insurable interest.
Perfect. I don't see anything else popping up on my end over here.
Okey-doke. Well, this was a quick one, and I appreciate everybody who attended and stayed with me and Natalia. I love to do these webinars. I love to share information. I'm always afraid I'm going to run out of time, but I didn't today. We have lots more to share with you, so please stay tuned for part 2. This PowerPoint presentation will be available to you all in PDF format. We will post it on our info. I think I don't know. I'm not sure if it gets emailed or we post it on our website, but you'll have access to it. Also, the recording of this webinar will be available to you shortly. That'll get put out by our business development marketing team. And I thank you all. I appreciate you so much, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. That was really informative.
Thank
Thank you. Again, if you have any additional questions after the end of the webinar, please submit them to info.us@optimumre.com. And also, please remember to complete the survey. We would greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to complete it. Thank you for joining us today. We realize your time is valuable and appreciate your participation. We hope to see you again for part 2 on June 25th and in October 7th and 8th for our claim seminar. Thanks again and have a great rest of your day.